We're going to talk about the very hot from the oven news that happened just a couple of days. And of course, that was Budget 2023. And this budget, of course, we're going to focus on the latest, should we call this the cooling measures?
No.
No, I don't think it's cooling measures.
Right. Why don't you think it's a cooling measure this round? I mean, if this is considered a cooling measure, it would be like the 14th or 15th round of cooling measures since Lehman Brothers.
Usually, because for a cooling measure, right, it usually slaps everybody throughout, unless it is additional buyer's stamp duty, where we actually split into whether your citizenship, number of property counts that you have, right? But for buyer's stamp duty, this one is on a tiering basis, right? We are affecting the market differently through different property prices. So this one is more like a wealth tax to redistribute some of the funds. And I also see why this is not a cooling measure because government has been, a few things. Number one, nowadays the cooling measures, right, will be released at almost at 12 midnight, so that nobody can react to it.
2359.
Yes, correct, right? So cooling measures are meant to be temporary. This one is not going to be temporary, even though our additional buyer's stamp duty started in 2011. It's been 12 years, a very, very long temporary kind of cooling measures, right? Yep, so not cooling measure, in my opinion.
How about George? What do you think?
I think
this was released at what time? 4 p.m.
Yeah, about 4 p.m. People call this the Valentine's Day's gift lah. Yeah.
And
in fact, I think there's a talk among us agents that Mr. Lawrence Wong actually single-handedly just kill off all agents Valentine's Day. Because once the news was out, our phone just can't stop ringing, and all of us is just trying to reach out to our buyers, trying to see whether are they interested to quickly close the sale before the 12 midnight.
Yeah, there were a couple of closings right that night.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the chat group. A lot of,
Maybe some of the businesses are hit. Maybe some reservations were being cancelled last minute.
and even if a couple were to go for a Valentine's Day dinner that night, the whole topic will all be on the buyer's stamp duty.
Yeah, man. Should they buy or shouldn't they buy?
Right. And so this is the buyer's stamp duty. Of course, there is this calculation there. So George, what do you think? Do you think this has a huge impact?
I don't think it has a huge impact. I think in my opinion, this is targeted more at the higher quantum property, as it is evident in terms of the numbers and the breakdown. We do have a few clients that are going for those 6 or 8 million or 10 million type properties. When we send all this across to them, in their opinion is that it doesn't really impact them that much. Instead of wanting to make a hasty decision, they feel that they shouldn't be jumping onto the bandwagon and kind of rushing off to have a bit of a knee-jerk reaction and just to buy due to this wealth tax system. Yeah, I think on the other hand, they were saying that okay, it's fine for them. They see this as something that will even moderate the market even better, and they do not mind taking their time to hunt for a property and to go into a property that they want to have more value instead of just rushing into it.
Right. Let's have a look at this news. I mean, the next day immediately it says, no rush to close home purchases before stamp duty deadline. Wayne, how do we calculate the latest one? Maybe share a little bit about the latest calculation.
Right. So of course, from the standard buyer's stamp duty rate is actually from 3% and 4%, right? So previously we were all looking at this figure of $1 million. So anything that's below $1 million is 3%, and anything that's above $1 million is 4%. So of course, right now there's 2 additional tier that's being tiered in. So anything between $1 million to $1.5 million is actually 5%, and from $1.5 million to anything that's from $1.5 million to $3 million is 5%, and from $3 million onwards it's 6%. So basically, from $1 million to 1.5 is 4%. But actually, on this note, there's actually a very interesting thought is that we keep talking about buyers. Whether are they being influenced by this increase in this buyer's stamp duty that actually propels them to whether should they buy or not. But actually, I encountered situations when even the sellers themselves, they may also be thinking whether should I lower my price just to catch this wave, or when I'm actually having an offer on the table, and when in the midst of the negotiation, will this actually affect the seller's decision to actually accept a lower price just to move on, or should they just continue to stick on to their current their existing marketing price? Yeah, because eventually, personally, one of my cases I had is that the sellers actually mentioned that the increase in the percentage point isn't significant enough for them to actually drop the price, because it's just only a few $1,000s increase. I mean, in the words of the sellers lah.
So if you calculate by $4 million, right? The
Correct.
calculation now is 4 million times 6% minus 60,400. So if you compare with the previous round, actually, what is anyone has a calculator? Can we just do a quick calculation based on 4%? Based on $4 million. Actually, the difference is not much, right? It's basically probably about 10 plus 20,000, or is it?
I think more than that, yeah. For 6 million,
Right.
the difference will be about 75,000. Yeah, but of course, when we take a look in terms of the overall quantum,
Right.
whenever we're looking at, say, for example, a landed, I think the 75,000 delta can be covered back when the overall price quantum increases. So I think, that is not really something that a lot of buyers are concerned about, especially when this wealth tax was being introduced.
So 4 million in the past, it was 144,000. Now, how much is it? 4 billion.
So 4 million in the past,
It's
now
144,000.
is 6%.
179,600.
So basically, it's about 30 over thousand
Yeah,
increment.
about.
And if let's say we're talking about property quantums in the range of 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, actually the differences are quite minute.
Yep.
Yeah, and just a very interesting point, Wayne point out that have we looked at the seller's point of view, right? I think it also depends on whether are the sellers upgrading or downgrading.
Of course.
Yeah. So if let's say they are moving bigger, I think the mindset is that they will also think that, hey, if I move bigger now, I also need to pay a little bit more in terms of the buyer stamp duty. So why should I lower my price for my existing home? Yeah, we should all bear so-called like the same kind of weightage lah in terms of that buyer stamp duty. Unless I think if the current sellers, they are actually downgrading, or let's say they are retiring, they want to pay off a singular property that's of a lower quantum, then maybe they might take into that consideration that maybe I should adjust a little bit to suit the buyers, right? So that I can exit soon to fulfill my plan. So I think it really depends on everybody's different thought process,
Right.
and the perspective. Okay, what do you all think? Maybe I pose a question to you. What do you think on this note? Since just now you mentioned that it's technically not like a cooling measure, right? What do you think will happen to the new launches for this year because of this?
Because of this cooling measure. Okay,
Because of
personally,
this non-cooling measure.
yeah, okay. Because of this buyer stamp duty change, right? Okay.
Right.
So actually, I think like maybe not just new launch specifically. So I wrote down some numbers over here, right? Because the stamp duty affects different tier differently. So of course, anything that is below 1.5 million, right, your HDB flats, high-end HDB flats, like your
Dawson.
entry level,
Dawson.
yeah, like entry level
Duxton.
quantum kind of pricing below 1.5 million, there's no impact at all, right? So if let's say I'm trying to buy something that's maybe 2.5 million kind of quantum for like a new launch, maybe like a 3-bedroom. The main difference of the stamp duty I'm paying is about $10,000, right? And it is actually 0.4% of my 2.5 million purchase price. So I think like that is quite insignificant, right? But if I were to look at, let's say we jump on to like higher quantum properties, right? 10 million detached, let's say at Bukit Timah, right? The buyer stamp duty difference right now is at $155,000. So it is a good enough additional revenue, definitely, for the government from a revenue standpoint. But if you see it with regards to the perspective of like I'm buying a $10 million house, right? It is only like 1.55% additional. But maybe this could create, right, like a current tug of war between like sellers and buyers when they're trying to offer. Like buyers will try to use this and try to start with a lower offer. And of course, like really depending on what is the plans of the sellers, like what Melvin mentioned, right? Maybe the sellers already have a firm plan, right? They might not want to waste time. They want to move on, right? For sellers who are very, very firm on still being very bullish about the market, then of course, like the negotiation are going to work, lah. Okay, but I think something that's very interesting is more like, let's say for example, GCB $35 million.
Definitely, I think the
Right,
impact.
655,000 additional of buyer stamp duty difference.
It seems like a lot, right?
Yeah.
But for GCB buyers,
Yes.
it doesn't seem like a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it will be. I don't think it will affect any of the GCB transactions. But of course, in the eyes of just 655,000, it looks huge.
But I don't think-
1.87% difference.
Yeah,
actually.
but I don't think the buyer stamp duty will form as a factor of negotiation between the buyer and the seller. Honestly, in that space of a GCB. Yeah, because let's say the GCB is marketing at $23 million. So
Yeah.
just because of that 6%, from a 4% to 6%,
And anyway, I mean, okay, that 6% is technically
yeah.
an increment of the 4%, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
So
is
it's
2% increment.
Yeah.
But that 2% increment, you will not go in and negotiate that. Let's say $23 million properties, I will just go and negotiate in $20 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a different scale altogether, I feel, for this kind of like large quantum. So ultimately, it is our government's way of bringing in extra money. Or I won't say extra money, but bringing in money to support the economy so that at least
Yeah.
that's what they
So it's
say
considered a wealth tax.
Yes, correct.
And that's, of course, in conjunction with the luxury cars, the ARF thingy.